Hello and welcome to Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. I'm your host, Jake Lowe. On this show, we've been through the entire Deep Blue Sea trilogy scene by scene. Now looking at some Deep Blue Sea adjacent films. That's films directed by Rennie Harlin, featuring sharks or aquatic action. And this is another one in the category of lots of aquatic action, little bit of sharks, no Rennie Harlin. As today we're talking about Waterworld. What is Waterworld? It's a 1995 post-apocalyptic film. Directed by Kevin Reynolds, starring Kevin Costner as the Mariner, a mutated human with gills and webbed feet, who is thriving kind of in a world that's flooded. It's the year, apparently the year 2500. I don't know, where the polar ice caps have melted. The world is flooded. Not many people left alive, and even less land to go around. And so the mariner has his custom built raft, and he's just making a life for himself. He runs afoul of the Deacon, played by Dennis Hopper. After the mariner comes into contact with Jean Triplehorn's Helen and Pino Majorino's Enola, who has some kind of a tattoo on her back that everyone seems to want to get hold of. Great, Waterworld, lots of water all over the world. You get it. So I need someone to. Normally we have people pick a film that they absolutely love to talk about on these episodes, but we had today a guest who was just interested to watch this film. So last time he came on to talk about a film he loved, last time he was here to talk about The Descent. But back from the What Do You Love podcast is Justin Gott. Justin, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it. My only rule is you can't take my limes. That's the only thing you can't.
I wouldn't even try. Lime's not my favorite fruit. If you put a lime in my drink, I will fish it out and possibly throw it at you. I don't know. But fruit should not be in drinks unless it's a juice.
Apparently, you can live off them. I did not know this.
I guess they prevent scurvy, for one thing. So that helps. That was always what the pirates would be taken in by back in the day.
Interesting.
So just need the vitamins. But yeah, so Waterworld. You have no history with this film. Why was it on your to watch list that you were destined to cross it off?
As a former resident of Los Angeles and someone who loved Universal Studios Hollywood, as it was my favorite theme park, everyone loved Disneyland, or we had a Six Flags Magic Mountain that was very popular, where roller coasters was more the forte for people. I preferred Universal Studios Hollywood because of just obviously the movie angle and the behind the scenes tram tour, which was always great. But they always had and still have to this day a Waterworld show, which is a live performance of the first act, not the first act, but that kind of when the Deacon comes into that first city that when the mariner has been taken captive, it's that scene. Yeah, exactly. There's the word that I had never heard before until this movie. So it's that scene basically, and they redo the entire scene, including like the plane flying in and whatever, and you're in like a stadium setting, and you get to like watch the whole thing in front of you. It's a lot of fun. It's a really cool live experience. I always really enjoyed it, and I had never seen the movie, and it was just one of those like, I really enjoyed this like thing. Is it just the campy nature of being at the theme park and watching them do this? Is the movie really as bad as everyone says it is? Because it kind of is notoriously terrible. And so I was always just very, very curious and never had gotten around to watching it because, let's face it, there's a lot of better movies out there to watch. And so we talked about doing another episode, and I was like, oh, this is a perfect opportunity to talk about Waterworld.
So yeah, I haven't been to the park and seen that stunt show, but I have been to parks in Florida where the stunt shows there were more. I think they were more Indiana Jones themed.
That's Disney.
Rather than Waterworld. Well, no, but this is before Disney bought. This is prior to that. This would have been the mid 90s, shall we say? So a while ago.
Sure.
So I remember enjoying those, and there's like the Universal Studios making of area where you can see like how they made Twister and did all the visual effects for Twister, and
right.
I loved that there, and that may have helped my love for Twister, a film that somehow we'll cover on this show one day because that's Deep Blue Sea adjacent enough, I guess. There's weather in it, and that's all we need. But so I I appreciate the stunt work, and that I can imagine that being a lot of fun. You said Waterworld has a reputation for being terrible. I think it has a reputation for being expensive,
Oh,
rather than terrible, personally, because this was uh, known for being a huge, not quite a flop because it did make money, but just being a massive endeavor to actually make. So back in 1995, this cost, I think, $172 million,
wow.
uh, which is a lot of money. I think it's adjusted for inflation. This is the 18th most expensive film ever made today.
Wow.
Uh,
Okay.
which we've recently talked about on this show some of the Pirates of the Caribbean films, which are third, sixth, and 19th on that adjusted for inflation according to Wikipedia. On Stranger Tides, it's cost way more money than it should have done for being a terrible, terrible film. So we're not averse to these films, and in fact, Rennie Harlin's Die Hard 2 was when that was released the most expensive film ever made.
Hmm.
So we're not shy of this discussion. But Westworld, because it's just sorry, Westworld. When Waterworld came out, it was the most expensive film ever made. For just for a year until Titanic rolled around,
Ah, makes
and
sense.
then Peter Jackson's King Kong, and then X-Men: The Last Stand somehow. Anyway, it's go on Wikipedia. Look at the list of most expensive films ever made, and it's nuts as to what some of them might be.
Was that
Rambo,
because they were covering Bryan Singer's legal fees, or?
quite possibly, yeah. I mean, Superman Returns was also Bryan Singer. They were both the same year.
Well,
And that's also on the list. And like Rambo 3 was the most expensive film for a few months until Who Framed Roger Rabbit came out. It's a fun list. But this is in there for just that short year. Because they always say don't work on the water, don't work with kids. I think it was a very troublesome set. I
mm.
read somewhere. I think there were deaths in the production of it. From like a guy just got on a jet ski and just kind of went out one day and no one saw him again.
Oh, okay,
That kind of
cool.
thing. Because they shot this on water, on a world of water, and there are sets involved, but sometimes there aren't. They're just out on the sea.
Yeah, sure.
And for that reason, I think it looks great. At least the waterness of it all. I'd only seen this film once before. Mark really wanted to be here today. Mark loves saying Westworld. Mark loves Waterworld. It
Well,
is. He asked me to bring this up, and I'm going to. It's the only film that he knows that has the Hofmeyer Triple of jet ski action, sea monsters, and catapults, and he cannot bring himself to dislike a film that has all three of those elements.
I shout out to Mark because I thought about him multiple times while I was watching this movie, namely when the smokers come around with their jet skis, and then especially when three of them crashed into each other and exploded at the end.
So okay,
I
my favorite scene of all time in all of film, which I've discussed before. But just if you want to hear Mark talk about Waterworld, he's done an episode of Movies, Films, and Flicks, and he was also a guest on the Exploding Helicopter podcast with friend of the show, Will Slater. So you can there'll be links to both of those in various places. So you should go and check those out. But yes, we're gonna jump straight to the ending because I have to talk about that scene.
okay.
Uh, it's because of it being the most ridiculous scene in all of cinema. Because you have a mariner, Costner, in like an airship, the child, Enola, down in the water, three jet skis, one of which manned by Dennis Hopper, all heading to pick her up in various directions. He hands a rope to Gene Triplehorn, says, tie this on. The other end of it is tied around his waist. And then he just leaps from the airship without it being tied on yet. This is, firstly, this is a rope. This is not a bungee cable. It's a rope. So the worst that's going to happen is he's just going to plummet. He's very fortunate. He it's tied on before he reaches the end of it. Grabs Enola, bounces back up again somehow. All the jet skis run into each other and explode. Had he not selected the girl, all three jet skis would still have exploded. Every element of this scene is ridiculous, and I love it so much that it just got passed through so many studio meetings. Like, yes, this is fine. Yep, okay, agreed. We're doing the jump and the tie on the rope, and it's a rope. It's not a bungee. It's a rope. Okay, it's a rope, and they're all gonna go together and explode. Yep, we're all good. Yep, okay, great. Film it. I just Like, I love that that happened.
In my notes, I wrote, "Why would they ride their jet skis into each other?"
Yeah.
Like, my question was more about like there was no plan. It was literally just we're gonna go as fast as we can in the direction of the small child and not like go to pick her up. Clearly, were they just going to run her over? There was zero thought about any of it, and I I I actually was a little sad. I wanted the deacon to have a more like impactful death more than just literally just three dummies running into each other with their jet skis.
He is the most fun element of the film, definitely. Dennis
Uh,
Hopper is having
100%.
a blast.
Yes.
This
Absolutely.
he's like this is post Speed, I think. Let me just confirm.
It is post speed.
Okay, this
Yes.
is post. So this is in his villain period. Though to be
Yeah.
fair, he's had a lot of villain roles in his lifetime. Super Mario Brothers, for instance. Uh,
So
um,
I was actually I'm glad you brought him up. So I was going to ask you what you thought in terms of villains, like comparing two people, because I watched this the same day as I watched Kubo and the Two Strings, which features don't worry about the order that I watch things in, but the villain in that movie is voiced by Ralph Fiennes. And while he does a pseudo, Voldemort type, job, I started to think about like how I've always thought Ralph Fiennes was like the ultimate villain. Like I think he is like the best at being that non-imposing villain across like all his roles. Like I think he's one of the best. Who's better, him or Hopper? Because they're very different. But do you have a preference?
I think Ray Fiennes is a better all-around actor.
Sure.
It like I haven't seen enough of Dennis Hopper's career to fully judge. I've mainly seen him in villain roles, so in the likes of Speed and Waterworld, in
Blue Velvet.
uh yes, that's the one. Thank you. And in Blue Velvet, Land of the Dead is not a great film, but he's the bad guy in it.
Yes.
Uh, um, so I don't. I'm sure he is capable of doing other things. He's great in True Romance. That one scene or the two scenes. So he's not that villainous there. Ray Fiennes, I love the guy.
I know. I mean, but like even outside of like that, like Voldemort, and not in this, Kubo and the Two Strings, I thought he was really good in just lending his voice to that role. But you have Schindler's List, and you
The
have
Bond films.
in Bruges. He's not a villain in the Bond movies.
No, but he's sorry, he's an excellent actor in them. But yes,
Oh no,
in
I
as villains, yes, he's I forgot about in Bruges. He is excellent. He's
yes.
spot on.
I just
We cannot
it
quote
was
anything he said because it would all have to be bleeped. But
right. It, it's just funny that like having watched them both on the same day, I was really thinking about these really solid actors who take on these could be like hammy, villainous roles. And I mean, Hopper adds, I mean, Speed is amazing, but he makes it like an actual legitimately all timer because his performance is so great, and he loves, being able to throw that little bit extra on every line he gives.
yes, and he's doing the same thing. He's this. It's the film that's kind of a little devoid of character in
Yes.
some cases. But Hopper more than makes up for that with Deacon. Like there's a scene where he wants some information from two people, and he says, "I'm the first one who gives it to me survives." So the first person who does survives. And he said he wouldn't kill them. But then when that guy's like, but then when he wants to kill them, and the guy's like, "Oh, you said you wouldn't kill me." He seems genuinely annoyed that he said to this guy that he wouldn't kill him, and so he just gets his henchman to kill him instead. He
Yeah.
seems like so. Oh, I did say that. Damn it! It's little moments like that, and he just without him, if that was a more like, beige villain, then this would be almost unwatchable.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I think most of that is because there is a beige hero.
Yes. Okay, let's get into Costner. So Costner's the lead in this film. This film basically got made because of Costner. I think this is he wanted to make Mad Max on the water,
Yeah,
which
that's
sounds phenomenal. There's a lot of Mad Max in this, especially like with the Deacon on his big oil tanker at the end dishing out cans of food. It's very Fury Road. I've never been a big fan of Kevin Costner. I think he is best when he's playing baseball, and I don't think he fits anywhere else. What do you think?
I think even playing baseball is a stretch. I think that, well, first off, in this movie specifically, I would say no one told Kevin Costner that this was supposed to be a like fun, campy movie. I think he takes this role incredibly seriously, and it feels like he didn't have any fun and felt like he like had to do some of the silly things because they were serious. I even think about the somersault he does at the very first like opening like moment onto like the whatever his what would you
The
call
netting thing. He's on
yeah
his
on his
rig, I think
boat.
he calls it his rig or his raft. Or, yeah, his craft.
Yeah, he does some sort of somersault, and I was just like, it. I'm all I could think about was Tim Allen and Galaxy Quest. Like, I just think like I have to do this because it makes sense, not because like it actually is like supposed to be funny. Like he, again, I think he took it way too seriously. Outside of this, I just he's a bad actor. I don't understand how he became a thing. I recently watched The Untouchables for the first time, a movie that was good. I wouldn't say it was great, but it was good. He's awful, like just absolutely terrible in the role, and it's like watching cardboard. Like I just don't feel like he has any depth, and especially in that movie where he's supposed to be like this. He's supposed to like be a brute at a couple moments where he's supposed to be really, really strong, and I laughed out loud when like he was having like a serious moment. All I could think about is I wanted Harrison Ford in that role instead. I thought that would have been 1,000 times better. But I don't like Kevin Costner. I don't get his appeal. I don't think he's. I mean, in terms of like attraction, like he's just your average handsome actor. Like I don't think that he's like above and beyond. I don't understand how he became like the A+ lister he was in the '90s. Rant over.
I have no answer for you. I listened to the Blank Check podcast with Griffin Newman and David Sims. Griffin Newman had a supporting role in Draft Day. And so whenever Kevin Costner comes up, he has nothing but good things to say about the guy.
Okay,
I bear him no ill will. He has been
sure.
in some bad films. Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit is terrible. But that's not like his fault. But yeah, there is no role that I think, yeah, he knocked that one out of the park. Like unintentional baseball reference, I think. I love his Robin Hood. Like one of my childhood favorites. I think he's terrible, and I love it in spite of him. Yeah, like I think he's good in Field of Dreams. I think he's good in Bull Durham. Those are the two. When I say baseball films, those are the two I'm thinking about. The Untouchables is great because of Sean Connery, and actually, take it back. He's really good in Silverado. Have you seen Silverado?
I have not.
Okay, it's 85. It's a western directed by Lawrence Kasdan. So Empire Strikes Back, the writer of.
Hmm.
It's four guys. It's Kevin Kline, Scott Glenn, Kevin Costner, and Danny Glover. Are these four uh, guys in the West who kind of get thrown together and take on a town? Basically, they're all like two of them are brother. Kevin Costner's the younger brother of Scott Glenn, and he's like in prison at the start of the film and he gets broken out. He's basically playing a puppy. He's so young, he's so full of energy. When he's in prison, he can't keep still. He's climbing the walls, he's climbing the bars. He's really good on it. That's the best Kevin Costner role I can think of. Is him in
You,
Silverado.
I think you've landed on something though. Is like it's a western, and he's kind of carved out this role, obviously with Yellowstone in the last half decade or so that show's been on, which I know zero people who watch it. But I just it feels like he belongs in the West. Like, doesn't it feel like he's a cowboy and like he just kind of exists in this like, and I think maybe that was this Waterworld idea is like I'm gonna be a water cowboy. Is that kind of where he lands on this? I
I
don't
can
know.
see that because he did Open Range as well, which is a very good film, and he is the lead in it. But he's having more fun than he's having in Waterworld. Um, I think the main problem with Waterworld with Costner in it is his character is just morose. He's this loner. He's just surviving. He's not living. He's just out there making his way, and he hates people. People are often mean to him because he's different to everybody else, and they treat him as such. So I can understand why he's not a happy chap, but it doesn't make him fun to watch. He's not like quick with a quip. He doesn't have like a good turn of phrase. He has a boat full of all these little contraptions and these levers that put out sails and do all these kinds of little things. But which you might think he'd have like some kind of fun with that. But he's just so matter of fact. So this is who I am. This is what I do. I don't like people.
Well, and there's that moment where Enola is like talking to the one henchman and saying like he's this and he's this and he's that and he's gonna come for me because he's this type, and like she's like doing like the whole superhero like monologue essentially about him, and none of that came across in their
I want to see that
interactions.
film.
Yeah, exactly. Because he doesn't feel like a character that I would be excited about. I mean, just think about it this way. The very first thing we see him doing is peeing into a jar and then purifying that water or that pee into water so that he could drink it. That's the very first thing we see him doing. That's not going to be a heroic person. It's just not.
But then he does take another swig, gargles it, and waters his lime tree with that, which it is like a nice little character beat, but he doesn't do anything with it. He just kind of does it, and there's no flourish. He's not talking to the lime tree like it's a sidekick. There's just nothing about him that makes him likable.
No,
So
not at
by
all.
the end of the film, when like Helen's come around to him, like I don't, because he's the only one there, I guess. Like
Yes, no, that's
options were
exactly what it
limited.
is. Yes, yes. I, I mean, so he doesn't get a one-liner either. So if you want to compare it to like Speed in that sense, where we're going against Dennis Hopper, right? Like when, in Speed, when Keanu Reeves' character gets to actually kill Dennis Hopper and he has the one-liner right after, yeah, but I'm taller, right? It's such a great line. It's just like all those 90s action guys had that one-liner that they could. So when the Mariner is like one-on-one with that one guy and he's like, you should have stayed underwater or whatever that one line is said at him, he then shoots him with the harpoon or something, right? Nothing. There's a shot of him, no line. So like it just feels like even the script knows that like he isn't that like exciting. He's just very blah.
Yeah. So who would be better? Who should be in this role?
I was afraid you were going to ask me this because I really don't know. Like I mean, is it somebody like Keanu? Like could that have made a little bit more sense at this time? Again, post Speed. Although him and Hopper again, like that, is that good or bad? I don't know. I don't know how studios saw it then.
I mean, if we're thinking a mid '90s mindset, then I don't want to say it, but I think Mel Gibson might have been back
Oh,
then the right choice, but today is not the right choice.
sure.
Just with but then it's the Mad Max of it all.
Exactly.
He's already done it. Um,
Exactly.
I don't know who like. I'd love to see Nick Cage in this role, but then I'd love to see Nick Cage as the Deacon as well. Uh,
I think Hopper's perfect. I really do. I think that I couldn't even think of if like this was remade. Like I don't even know if who would be better than this. Like I really think Hopper is what makes this movie watchable and borderline good. Like I did enjoy it. I want to make sure I actually enjoyed it way more than I thought I was going to. I just think that Costner sucks. I really do.
yeah. Once you get past that, I enjoyed it too. This was my second viewing. I'd only seen it once before. All I could remember was that scene at the end. Because I talk about it every chance I get. How
Yeah,
nonsense
sure.
it is. So I thought everything about Dennis Hopper's character and everything about it. So it was fun to watch. Uh, it's just Costner. It's just Costner. We're gonna get past
So
that. So
I was gonna ask you a question. So if you were mad at somebody, if somebody had ruined your boat or was talking too much or had done something that you were just really unhappy about, would you cut their hair?
okay, so he cuts her hair for a reason. It's not like retaliation for them being annoying. It's so that people don't immediately see them as being women. I think
You think? Oh, is that what that was?
that's my assumption is that because they get recognized by the smokers. So I think
Okay.
if he cuts the hair, then at first glance they might appear to be all like a bunch of men on there, and not just hey, it's that guy and the woman and the kid.
Okay.
That's my assumption. I don't think it's like you speak back to me, I'll cut your hair. I
Well,
don't think it's that.
the cut from no pun intended, from where he has done it to the woman, and then like you don't see him do it to Enola. And like there's a cut from like him being angry and like using his sword thing around on her hair, and then it cuts to them both having short hair, and I laughed. I just couldn't stop laughing because it was so funny. Like it was like this is his punishment, is cutting their hair.
I think the punishment was not asking them at first, just doing it. It is. I mean, that's quite a brutal scene. You don't know what he's going to do, and
Yeah,
yeah, the cutting of the hair is something of a surprise. Maybe they should have explained it a little better. Uh, that was my reading, at least.
fair enough. All right.
Uh, And I think he cuts it so their hair is now shorter than his. So he's pushing a mullet in some scenes.
Yeah, but
Um,
with quite a high hairline though too. Like it's
yes.
not great. It's
No, you don't see a lot of people cosplaying as the Mariner these days,
no.
for some reason.
No.
No, just the other line that I love from Dennis Hopper, the other moment when the attack on the atoll is taking place,
I know
and
what you're gonna say.
the Mariner is harpooned the gunner ship and is dragging it, and it's run by a guy called Chuck is
Yep.
shooting, and Dennis Hopper's like, maybe it's not the Chuck. I called him Charles. Uh, like, firstly, he can't hear any of you. He's a long way away on the ocean and shooting a massive gun. But just a little. I love to think that wasn't in the script, and it was just Dennis Hopper having fun.
I as soon as you started explaining the scene, I knew what you were gonna say because I wrote that down as well. So thank you for looking at my notes and knowing I was gonna talk about the Chuck Charles scene.
What did you think of the new language or the changed language of the this
Was it
water world?
Portugreek? Is that what they called
I
it?
not sorry. I mean there is Portuguese, but there's also they have like new slang terms. They don't call it months; they call it lunas. It's not money; it's chits. It's not water; it's
Shit.
pure hydro, and it's not petrol; it's go juice. You got 1,000 Gs of go juice. These kinds of things. Do you think all that worked, or was it a bit silly?
I think Go Juice is a energy drink that my friends in college drank. I'm pretty sure Go Juice sounds like something that would be at least promoted by Monster or Red Bull or something.
Yeah.
No, I think that's a little too on the nose. Go Juice. I like Hydro for water. That's fine because that essentially is another. Chits was obviously a little generic. Like, do we have like I need a chit to dollar like calculator and understand like how much we're talking about here.
Yeah, because he's got a big jar of dirt that he sells. They want 62. They offer 62 chits, and he says he wants double. Then he has to
So
pay about half of that for a tomato plant and some
why
shelves.
is dirt expensive? Or like why is it worth something when it's not on land? Like you can't like produce an island out of that little bit of dirt.
I'm guessing they can grow things in it.
Hmm.
So you get the tomato plants or the lime tree if you have dirt, and I don't know where they're getting the seeds from,
Right. Well,
but presumably
that's
they can then grow something. So that tomato plant, that dirt had to come from somewhere. So when they find out that he can just because he's got the gills and the webbed feet, which it it's supposed to be like a next step in evolution, but this is 500 years from now. I don't know how fast evolution works, but I don't think it's that quick. But maybe it is. Who knows? What do I know? I'm no biologist. But he can swim down to the bottom of the sea, resisting the crushing pressure of thousands of meters of depth. Because at the end, when they get to like the Mount Everest at the end of it, that's Mount Everest. The elevation on that is almost 9,000 meters, and so he's going down about 8,000 meters. That's a lot of pressure. That's I don't care what you are, whether you have gills or not. No. Um, but he can get the dirt from the bottom of the sea and then bring it up, and it's just dirt. I don't know why he doesn't do more of that. Like help some people out. Just bring up more dirt. Be
Do
cool.
you have you've been really good about answering some of my questions. Can you explain why there was a submarine amongst the skyscrapers?
Nope,
In
can't do that. So, so well, okay. Submarines are currently underwater for the most part. when the polar ice caps flooded, I mean, not everything disappears at once. So the city that they visit that's flooded and hit by a submarine, maybe that's one of the lower level cities. So there would have been a time where the higher land still existed with people living on it. Those people had a submarine, and that crashed into a building that didn't see coming.
Okay.
Sure, it's a hypothesis that I'm going to accept. Good. Uh, yes, there is. I did enjoy that sequence. It's unnecessary. Well, it's frustrating when, um, you know, Helen Jean Triple's character, she's like, they want to go to the dry land. They're trying to find the dry land is the main thing, and Enoda's got a
Right.
tattoo on her back that might lead to it. I don't quite see how it does, but fine.
It's upside
And
down. You're reading it upside down. That's the
sure,
problem.
but even then, it's like a circle with some whatever. Um, and so to convince her that there is no dry land, the mariner puts her in this big bubble with air in it and takes Helen down to the bottom of the sea. Whilst they're down there, his raft gets taken over by the deacon and the smokers. It's frustrating 'cause you can kind of see it coming because they've only just got away from the smokers. They haven't gone far, and then they stop, and the two adults go underwater. So it's a little frustrating that happens, but it's a nice sequence with the going down really deep, seeing like this sort of skeleton of a building that's been destroyed, and just getting the true picture of everything that's been lost with
Hmm.
this catastrophe that's happened. So I liked that sequence. Um, do you think this should have hit the climate change thing harder on the head with the messaging, or do you think it does it enough? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it was too campy to do it. Where it was where again going back to Kevin Costner being a super serious. Like I felt like it was so light that it couldn't do that. I guess. I I mean, the fact that they referred to the ancients and me feeling like that was probably talking about me.
Yeah,
Uh,
the ancients did something
yeah,
terrible hundreds of years ago.
yeah. I do think
Today,
though that it, yeah, that's it felt a little prescient, in the sense that it was like, okay, I could actually see this being a thing and this actually happening. Whereas, you know, maybe Mad Max a little less so in the sense that it's more believable to me that water would cover this earth more than it would be just like barren wasteland.
yeah, I really liked the Universal logo at the start, flooding as the world spins. That was a nice
Yes.
touch.
Yes.
Yeah, I always enjoy a custom logo, but they just could have. I don't. Did you see a timestamp on the film? It's only Wikipedia that
No.
says 2500. Um,
No. On a synopsis I saw way in the future essentially is the idea. Like it's just in the
yeah,
future.
you
So,
know, yeah, a long way away in a galaxy that's right here. Yeah. Okay. Uh, my notes are all over the place because I finished watching this very recently. This has been a hectic day, so I've not had much of a chance to prep for this show other than to watch the film. What did you think of Jean Triplehorn? Is she an actress that you've come across much before?
only recently, actually, I saw Basic Instinct for the first time this year,
Okay.
or I guess actually when this airs, it'll be last year. But in 2023, I watched Basic Instinct for the first time, and that was, I think, my first experience where I really like took notice of like who she was. I maybe have seen something else that she's been in, but I mean, I don't know. She was fine. Like there really wasn't much to her character either. Like again, this was not a character movie in any sense. Like nobody had depth. Sorry, Deep Blue Sea fans, but there was no like real like more to these characters. I thought they were all pretty shallow.
Basic Instinct, her first film.
Oh, wow.
She had a TV movie before that, but that was her first like theatrical release. Yeah, this was only she'd only been acting for like 4 years when Waterworld came out.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think she does fine. Her character's a little thankless. She has the
Yeah,
traditional '90s female role of you have to get naked at some point, uh, just because we tell you to.
yeah. Even in a
Which
PG-13 movie.
yeah, so that felt a little unnecessary. Because she's offering herself up. You didn't need to then zoom out and drop remove her clothes. You didn't necessarily need that. But hey, it's there.
It was
So,
actually funny. I watched it, and my wife was in and out of sleep while I was watching it. But that first bit she was in on, and she goes, like, I thought this was more of a family type movie. And meanwhile, the main female character is, like you said, offering herself to our hero. So not the most family friendly of
well, and
scenes,
then
that's for sure.
later the mariner sells time with her to
Yes.
uh, to um to Kim Coates' character,
Yeah,
who is making some choices. Like, yeah, it's like acting wise, you want some character depth. Head for Drifter number two. Uh,
yeah.
he's
Yeah,
got did a lot of business. Uh,
he was something. No, and even speaking about like that sort of content, like I felt like the later sex scene between them, which we don't see any of, right? It was both the most ill-timed, but also made the most sense of like any sex scene I've ever seen. Like, go like find the girl. Like, go, like, what are you doing? You don't have time for this. But also, if you actually think that you have no prospects of getting anywhere and you're probably going to die soon, makes sense. It just felt like it was both somehow.
yeah, because their raft has been destroyed. The girl has
Yeah.
been kidnapped. They have no way of going to find her. They have no means of moving. They're just stuck on this floating bit of wreckage,
Yeah.
and so they have nothing else to do. So why not just get down to it? And it could have been more inconvenient because, like, the next day, Michael Jeter shows up. Maybe he showed up a little bit earlier. That could have been incredibly awkward. Maybe he did, and then he like did another lap and came back when they were finished. I love Michael Jeter. Whenever he shows up in anything, I'm always happy.
Well,
He's
it's funny that you bring him up because I did, of course, I mean, I thought of you because I was going to be recording with you on this, but I also thought of you because he's in Jurassic Park 3, of course. And
yes.
there was a moment in Waterworld that reminded me of our favorite moment in Jurassic Park 3. And it was the moment when they're on the aircraft at the very end, and the seagull lands on the edge of the thing and looks at the mariner. And I
It goes
so bad
Mariner, Mariner.
I wanted it to talk. I wanted it to pull an Alan. That's what I wanted.
That would have been incredible. It's like if he's evolved to have gills, seals evolved to talk. It would be excellent. Yeah, he's always a fun presence, and he's also doing a lot of business with his character here. He's putting on. I'm not sure what accent it is he's doing. It's a combination of a few other ones, and he's a guy who he's the basis of the character from Up, who's put a big balloon on top of his house. He accidentally sets off and just flies away. Um, but
I like how it was released by him like accidentally like falling into a lever.
this
Like that was
giant lever that's so easy to push. No guard around it. He just kind of trips, and that's it. My house is flying away now. Whoops! Who put this
yeah.
here?
Bye guys. And it's just like
If I had a button that I could push that would make my house fly away, there would be so many guards around. There'd be at least a cover on it.
well,
At
it
least
feels like an
something.
emergency situation, right? Like a big red button press for emergency. Only it's a giant lever that
It's, it's,
all he has to do is fall into and it's done.
it's a self-destruction button, basically. There's like think of Alien. There's like a whole 10-minute warning sequence. You can deactivate it. There's no chance. It's off. Away he goes. I did like all of the kind of contraptions and inventions going all the way around the film as well. Not just on the Mariners Way, but that inflatable house and all the little steampunk notions of things. But
He's like the dad in Gremlins, but in a post-apocalyptic world.
absolutely, yeah. This world does not look fun to live in at all. Everything is when it comes to the deep and blue rankings later. If it's not blue, it's brown in this film. It's just everyone wants dirt. Just kind of scrape it off of your clothes. It's everywhere. It's on everything. It's horrible. Everything's
Yeah.
just kind of rusty and filthy everywhere.
As someone who is pretty afraid of water and does everything I can to not be in the water, I don't think I would do well in Waterworld.
I was gonna say because you're famously like from California, will not swim.
Yeah. I do have to give the movie props in on one thing in particular. The characters often had very chapped lips,
Yes.
and I imagine that would be a thing because salt water, when getting on you like that, is not good and it makes it worse. So I appreciated that, even that one little moment where he takes the little water out of the water bottle of the fresh water and puts it on the little girl's lips. I appreciated that. That was a nice little beat.
Because they're friends. Uh,
He is no longer going to throw her off the boat.
yeah. Again. Yeah, which he finds out that she can't swim. Um, he's not a nice guy. He's the hero of the film. He's just not a nice. It's like, how could they not see this coming?
Is the
Uh,
Mariner the first anti-hero?
I mean, we had Snake Plissken prior to him. He's maybe the worst anti-hero. Um, are you a fan of Napoleon Dynamite?
That's a complicated question. I saw it once in high school, and it was huge. Was it as big overseas as it was where we were? Because man,
Unfortunately, yes, it was.
yeah, it was a gigantic deal, and I thought it was fine then. I have not revisited. I don't think I would find it funny at all now.
I've never really liked it, but
Yeah,
I was like thrilled that for some reason that the child in this went on to become Deb in Napoleon Dynamite, like the lead.
interesting.
Yeah, I was like, oh, because I didn't recognize her at all, and I looked her up and go, oh, it's her. Okay, great. So, um, Tina Majorino, she's not. What else has she been in? Why would I ask that question and then close the tab? That seems like a silly thing to do. Nothing else I've seen. Great, that was worth doing. So yeah, as a child, she seems fine in this. I'm not
Yeah,
generally hugely fond of child actors, but I think she is supposed to be irritating, and she kind of is a little bit less. She's less irritating than the Mariner makes her out to be. Because she never shuts up. She's always talking. And she keeps on like climbing over my ship and drawing on things. It's like, yeah, what's she supposed to do? She's a child, and she's
yeah.
not talking that much.
I didn't find the drawing to be that big of a deal. Like, why wouldn't you want your rig to have a little bit more color on it? Like, just felt like I don't know. He had a stick up his ass. Like, it was just like, and he wasn't, and I guess that just comes from being alone and doing your own thing for all these years. And I think we're kind of burying the lead a little bit that he leaves them at the end. He drops them off on the dry land and he's like, I have to go do my thing out on the water. This is just what I have to do. I don't get that ending at all. Why would you do that?
Well, I think he doesn't like being on land. He doesn't move properly, as he said. He's used to being on the water. He's kind of adapted to that like aquatic lifestyle, not just because of the gills and the feet, but that's just what he's used to. My guess is in Waterworld 2, he like goes out in the sea. He doesn't like it. He comes back and lives with them. He misses them too much.
Hmm.
I think. What I like is that they when Michael Jenner shows up and he takes them to the survivors from the atoll. There's like 10 of them. There's a bunch of them, and then later there's half that many. So they just left half of them back where they were, and they're never seen again.
Wait, you said Waterworld 2. Is that a thing?
No, I don't think so. I don't
Oh,
think
okay.
I'm pitching the sequel. If
I
they were
see.
to make Waterworld 2, then
Well,
um,
I think if there was, I do think, like, I know we were talking about who would maybe play Hopper now, or not Hopper, who would play Deacon now. I do think like a Chris Hemsworth type guy now would be able to pull off maybe a little bit more of a charismatic Mariner.
yes, I think you're right. Would they get Chris Hemsworth, or would they be stuck with Liam? I, I, I mean, it depends on the budget. I think yeah, yeah, I can see Hemsworth doing that. I can see who would make a good Deacon these days.
Well,
Michael Keaton could do a good Deacon. I
my
think.
go-to for villains is Walton Goggins. I think if you give
Sure.
something like that, I think he can choose some scenery for sure. But I think that's what I feel like with the villain role. Like, there's enough people who can do big like that. I think there's fewer people who can be the hero and actually be interesting and maybe funny and be able to do like he's by himself for a number of scenes, so like being able to be again charismatic on his own. And again, I just don't think that that's Costner.
No, I agree. I'm going to pitch Michael Shannon for the Deacon and Willem Dafoe for Old Bragger. Who could be Helen? I don't know. Naomi Harris. Let's say Naomi Harris. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Uh, these. She can bring more character to it. No offense to Jean Chilhon, but I feel like Naomi Harris would fight for more character these days. That's kind of the main cast we've gone through. Jack Black is apparently in here as a smoker plane pilot. I
Yep.
did.
I noticed him, and I even paused it and then rewound it and pointed to my wife. I was like, "Who do you think that is? 30 years ago." She didn't. She was like, "Let me go back to sleep. I don't care." But it was like I did clock him in that scene. Yeah.
I'll have to pour through it and find him.
He's the one when they fly the plane around the boat and he gets harpooned and his co-pilot gets harpooned through and he's like upset about it, but then it's later he gets more of like a solo shot. There's a scene where the deacon is yelling at somebody and he's like in that scene and you can tell it's him. If you're looking for him, you can see him.
I will do that.
On your third visit.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a good scene as well when the plane, like when Helen shoots the plane, and then the pilot, Jack Black, trying to shoot the rope, and Costner trying to shoot the rope as well. Because both want to disconnect because they know that it's not going to do good for either of them. It's just destroying both of their vehicles.
Well, what's funny about that moment too is the way that it is edited, the movie. When the pilot is shooting at the rope, it's then immediately cut. So he pulls the trigger, and then it cuts to Kevin Costner on the boat, seemingly avoiding a bullet. So it comes across as if he's being shot at by the pilot, but actually the pilot is shooting the rope, and the bullet wouldn't be anywhere near him. It was very poorly edited, I thought, in that moment too.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to keep defending his actions in the film. Maybe the mariner didn't know it wasn't being shot at, but didn't know he wasn't being shot at. He just heard a gunshot and assumed that people were shooting at him. That's just whenever he's around people, they just try and kill him.
So much practicality on your mind right now, dealing with the mariner.
Well, I mean, we try to be positive about films on this show, and that can often require defending silly actions for characters in films. So
Does does that include eating the leaves of a tomato plant?
there's got to be some goodness in there somewhere.
But isn't there a potential for tomato in that? Like, isn't that or you just can't wait? I guess I mean, I suppose you got to eat now.
Yeah, I mean, I hate tomatoes, so I would eat anything else. I can't stand them. They're one of the worst foods, in my opinion. Uh,
So I had one major question for you, and it involves the ship that the Deacon is on, which when it sinks it shows to be the Exxon Valdez, which
sure.
is famous for having been one of the most like the largest oil spills that's ever happened. So I looked this up. So the Deacon talks to a picture at one point. It says like their captain or something, and he calls him
Captain
Joe.
Joe Hazelwood.
Yes. So that is the actual captain of the Exxon Valdez, who infamously was not at the controls when the Valdez hit whatever it hit, and presumably was even drunk at the time. And I didn't read all the Wikipedia page, but it appears that he got in some trouble for that. So that is the guy who is like their like guy he talks to, right? So what I wanted to actually pitch to you was this. The Valdez oil spill happened in 1989. This movie came out in 1995. So this is 6 years. So it's enough in the, I guess, is it still zeitgeisty enough to where did people know who Joseph Hazelwood was? How niche of a joke is that? Because I had no idea. I had to do research because I was doing this podcast, right? So there's two parts to this. One is that joke just so incredibly pinpoint that it doesn't work at all? That's question number one. Question number two is if we did remake it and something 6 years ago was to be used, any ideas on what we could do from 2017? Because the only thing I got was Me Too, and I don't know how that works with a boat.
So I I'd never even heard of the Exxon Valdez,
Oh, okay.
let alone Joe Hazelwood. And I went to a school that was called Hazelwood. So that was my reference. Like, hey, it's named after my school. So I looked him up and goes, oh no, this is a real guy. Okay. So I think this is quite a niche reference.
Yeah.
For 95, probably less so, 'cause it would have been fresher in the mind. If we're sticking with current day boat related things, it's not 6 years ago, but maybe the boat that got stuck in the canal
Yes.
in 2020.
Yes. I don't remember what it was called though. See, this is my point. That happened 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and I don't remember what it was called. I know that it was, yeah, it was the Panama Canal, wasn't it? It kept like reversing
the
and whatever. It was stuck.
the Sway Canal.
Oh, yes. Sorry, American. I don't know geography.
I'm trying to think the name. The Ever Given. Yeah, the Ever Given
Okay.
was the one.
So if
Um,
somehow that boat became the home for the deacon and all of his people, then that boat's pilot, captain, whatever, would have his picture up on the wall.
yeah, I'm gonna try and find out if we know who that person would be. Uh,
No, but that I get that just proves how small that joke. Like, I mean, the only reason I am looking into this in any way is because I was going to be on this show. I wanted to bring something like kind of like I don't know, some minutia that I thought you might enjoy, and that's why I did it. Nobody else who might watch this movie is going to pick up on that or know that at all.
I completely agree. Uh, there must be a pilot in here somewhere. A captain's name on this Wikipedia page. I can't find it.
Was so Kevin Reynolds is the director, right? Was he just like a huge fan or like of the story of the Exxon Valdez? Was he like, I need to know why they chose like this is like, I know it was a huge deal, but I don't know. It's just kind of funny to me.
I mean, gotta be. There is no other explanation. Yeah, the Kevin Reynolds career. The only other film of his I've seen is Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. So he had worked with Costner before.
Yeah.
So he's like Tristan and his old Count of Monte Cristo, Red Dawn. These are films I haven't seen. So
I saw the Monte Cristo movie back in when it came out and liked it when it came out, but haven't revisited it since. So
I liked everything I like about this film is to do with Dennis Hopper. So he has various names that he calls the mariner throughout the film. They're all fun. He calls him the gentleman guppy, like a turd that doesn't flush. He refers to him as Enola's pet fish at one point. Sperm of the devil
yeah.
was a particularly nice turn of phrase. So that's I do like a good movie insult. Uh, what did you like the sea beast scene when the mariner's trying to feed Helen and Ola? So he goes fishing, he throws himself in the water as live bait, and this giant sea monster eats him essentially. And they cut back to quite a small amount of meat has been retrieved to feed them.
I thought the graphics were incredibly dated. Not surprising, although if it cost 172 million dollars, none of it was spent on that sea monster. And yeah, I also agree that like it felt like there was not nearly as much meat as could have been there. Seeing that he basically exploded it.
Yeah, it's a thing big enough to eat a Kevin Costner. There should be more meat on it than a couple of meals worth. I guess
Yeah.
he's got no way of keeping it. Uh,
No.
if you just drag it through the water, then that's not going to end well. There's other things going to eat it.
Yeah, I really was surprised there was not more water beast action in this. That would be something I would like to see more of, seeing that they spent literally the entire movie out in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah, they do use sharks. They use sharks as trackers because they have blood. So that was nice. I could have
Yeah,
done with more of that. Because
yeah,
like Deacon says, bring out the trackers, and then a little later we have a couple of shark fins swimming past Enola. But that's all we see. And we're a shark movie loving podcast, and that's not enough shark.
close enough.
Frankly, I need more shark. Uh, um, some there are some areas where there's depth. It's all in the Deacon's crew, I guess. So he has this big oil supply at one of his tanker, and there's a long vertical tunnel down to it. And he's just got this old guy living down there
Yeah.
who, the film ends with a lit flare being dropped down and exploding, and we just get one little moment with this old guy like, oh, thank God, and he's killed.
Yeah.
I just wanted a whole film of that guy. I, it's like it just what a horrendous life.
Yeah. Yeah. Not, I mean, can't even let the guy see the sun. Like he's just
No,
out there in the dark the entire time. Yeah. It's terrible.
he has these like two lines throughout the whole film, but he's just it's
It reminded me
awful.
of the old man from Old School. Like,
Oh,
I
Blue.
wanted Dennis. Yeah, I wanted Dennis Hopper to look down there and just be like, "You're my boy, Blue." And,
Shit. Yeah, I think he could have done that. Yeah, that was who was it? I think it's William Preston is this actor. Oh, that's Preston. Um, yeah, there's, I want there to be more to talk about with this film. I haven't got much more to talk about, unfortunately. Uh,
I have one more note. Somehow we've hit everything on my notes except for one thing, and I need you to explain this to me because I feel like you've done such a great job of
I would
explaining everything
try.
else. The very beginning, when he has his little run-in with that first other guy that's out on the other boat
The
or
lime
whatever.
thief.
The lime thief, yes. So there's a moment where that guy licks his finger and puts it up into the air to like test the wind,
Yep.
I believe. Can you explain this to me? Because I don't know how exactly licking your finger and putting it up into the air tells you which direction the wind is about to blow.
I can't explain why, but it does work. If it's a windy day or if there's a slight wind, that extra excess water on your finger, it adds some like sensitivity to it, I think, so you can feel which direction or what part of your finger the wind is hitting. So I have done this before. I don't know
Were
if it
you a
was just
Boy
like I've
Scout?
seen it. Briefly. I
Okay.
remember nothing from it, and I never went like camping or anything. I was like the kind of the rung down from Boy Scouts, which I think it's Beavers. Yeah, I think I can't remember. So long ago.
Oh man,
But as a child, I was part of that
I was not. Clearly, that's
information
why I'm
cult.
asking about the survival techniques of people
But
on
like,
water.
I can't tie any good knots or anything. I don't remember any of it. So I think it's just something to do on a Wednesday night. Um, but yeah, I don't know if it's I saw it happen in a film where if you lick your finger and put it in the air, you can feel the wind. But it does. From what I can recall, it does work. Uh,
Well,
so
it didn't. If it does work, it didn't work fast enough for that guy because he just got run over, and that was it for him.
yeah, well, he was he didn't quite realize how great the mariner's craft was that it could just pull a lever, open up everything, and he could run people through with it and take out their mast. He just leaves that guy for
Yeah,
dead.
yeah, oh
That's
yeah. I mean, I think that's supposed to show that he has just like he has no relationship with people, right? He just doesn't care, and that just kind of starts that air quotes character development for him. Not even development, just establishment. And so I suppose that that's what that's for. But yeah, he just ended that guy. Don't take his limes. Do not take the Mariners' limes.
he didn't even get them back. It wasn't like just as he's running them
No,
through, he just grabs the three remaining ones or anything. They're gone. Yeah, that's sad. Why didn't the guy take the whole plant? He just took the lines. Why take the whole thing? Silly. So how are you with like the post-apocalyptic films? Do you like them? Do you seek them out?
well, Fury Road you mentioned earlier is one of a handful of movies that I did not like upon an initial viewing. I was that rare person who didn't understand Fury Road in any way and like defended myself forever. And then a year or so ago, I rewatched it. I was like, okay, give it another shot. Maybe it was an experience thing, whatever. And then I was like, oh, actually, no, this is awesome. This everybody was right this whole time. So like that I'm a fan of. I haven't seen any of the other Mad Max movies. One of my all-time favorite movies is The World's End, which is ends as a post-apocalyptic movie.
Yeah.
Other than that, I can't really say that I've spent a lot of time with. Well, is Children of Men that? Because that's an all-time favorite of mine.
So I guess partially it's on its way to being
Right.
that. I guess it's in the same genre.
Yeah.
Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior, is definitely worth a watch.
Okay.
That's your list. That should be on your list before Waterworld.
No one's asking me to do a podcast about Mad Max 2, though. So.
True, and I can't think how we could tie that into Deep Blue Sea. It's not the least bit aquatic at all.
No.
Yeah, and we have to talk about Mel Gibson more than we already have.
Right.
Which recently watched the new Chicken Run, Dawn of the Nugget, and as I was watching it, my wife was like, "That it was doing that voice doesn't sound like Mel Gibson." I was like, "No, it's Zachary Levi. Of course, it's
Oh.
not Mel Gibson." And she said,
Yeah.
"Well, couldn't they get him back?" And I was like, "They didn't ask him to come." And she'd never heard of anything to do with Mel Gibson. Any reason why
Oh.
he wouldn't be asked back to be in Chicken Run? So I got to explain the sugar tits of it all.
Well, and what's funny about that is that that's probably the least offensive thing he did.
Sure, but I just it's I like that there's people out there that just aren't don't have all this bombarded with them every day.
Yeah,
So that's nice place to be.
that's amazing.
Yeah. So, any final thoughts on Waterworld?
I am glad that I watched it. I did, despite all of my partial negativity, I did think it was a lot of fun in places. And I think having the experience of having seen the stunt show, it helped because I was like, oh, look at that. No, I remember seeing that. And that's, whatever. Dennis Hopper, of course, is incredible. Speed Villain, better, but it's a close second. And yeah, anti Kevin Costner forever. I really don't think that I'll really ever understand why he managed to climb the ladder he did. But congrats to him. Glad he's a nice guy.
Yeah. One final thought for me is we talked a lot about Dennis Hopper, but not his appearance in this film because he loses an eye early on, and then he's wearing an eye patch for a lot of it. But at one point they tried to make a fake eye for him, and
That's
it's
funny.
one of the scariest things I've ever seen. Just he asked people what it looks like, and they're like, "Yeah, it's great, it's great, great." And he asked the child, and they say it looks like a piece of crap, and they are correct. It's awful, but I'd like having fun with him and how he looks, and he's got a very very distinct visual style with the bald head and the eye patch.
I just
So,
realized, so you brought up the eye patch thing. I mentioned earlier that I watched Kubo and the Two Strings on the same day. Main character,
sure.
also one eye and an eye patch.
Also mentioned Snake Plissken earlier. One eye and an eye patch.
Well, none of this was planned, by the way.
Nope. No, so before we get out of here, we have two things to do. How is Waterworld similar to Deep Blue Sea? I have a list, as always. So some of this we've already mentioned. We meet a guy pissing. When we first meet Jim Whitlock, he's pissing into the wind. And when we first meet the mariner, he's urinating, as discussed. Costner at the harpoon mount is very much like Carter at the harpoon at the start of Deep Blue Sea. How can I already not read my writing that I wrote 3 hours ago? They're doing aquatic mutations instead of making sharks' brains bigger. It's mariner gills. Boat explodes. Living quarters are destroyed on water. There's prison escapes. There's main character is a good swimmer. Trying to escape a destroyed floating facility. A lady undresses at one point. There is a small plane. There's a sea monster. There are sharks, but no real effect from them. But they consult a map. It just happens to be a tattoo. There are flares followed by a big explosion. There's a high dive. You mentioned it with Jack Black when they harpoon a spear through a guy and the vehicle that he's on. In this case, it's a plane, and in Deep Blue Sea, it's a shark. Not much of a vehicle, but it's similar. Like he shoots. They weren't aiming to shoot both of them, and they got both of them. They pin them together. So that's a similarity. And how deep and how blue is it? So Justin, as I'm sure you know, Deep Blue Sea is approximately 47.5 feet deep. 31% blue. Do you think, on average, Waterworld is deeper and or bluer than Deep Blue Sea?
Uh, well, apart from the one scene when they go far, far deeper, I would say on average, not deeper, far bluer.
You are correct, but only just. It is less deep, but it's in the listing. It is next adjacent depth-wise. So whereas Deep Blue Sea is 47.5 feet deep, this worked out at being 43.9 feet deep. I had to kind of guess how deep they went in that section, but they did go quite deep for a little while, and then the rest of it is all pretty much on the surface level or a little bit high up in a plane.
Mhm.
So it worked out being pretty deep. So it's our 19th deepest film so far. Still, like Descent, the Descent is fourth still, so you're still doing very well in that depth wise.
Nice.
Blueness, this worked out being 46.1% blue. Where compared to 31 for Deep Blue Sea, so it is our 10th bluest film made into the top 10. You're bluer than 47 meters down uncaged, less blue than Tentacles, and considerably bluer than The Descent,
The Descent, yeah.
which is still 2% blue. Down at number 82 on the list out of 89. So only 7 films less blue, and 2 of those are black and white. So, so that'll do it for Waterworld. Thank you for joining me to discuss it, Justin. And please promote your new show that started since you were last on.
Yeah, so my podcast is called What Do You Love? It has nothing to do with movies, which, is a rare thing, I'm sure, for your guests, and so I appreciate you allowing me to be on anyway. It basically just examines the question, what do you love, instead of what do you do? Because I hate the idea that we start every conversation with what do you do? And I like to explore people's identities outside of their job and the things that you do on a day-to-day basis, but rather what makes up who you are. So I am excited for second season, which is premiering here in February. Go back and listen to, I had 20 amazing guests in season 1, and I'm excited for what's to come with season 2, including one Jay Cluett.
What? Yes, I strongly recommend this show. I've loved the first season, and the one episode I've heard half of from the second season is great too. So yeah, it's like you say, it's not about movies, but it is. I found it to be quite inspirational in terms of how to live your life. It's no, by no means preachy. It doesn't tell you how to live your life. But
Correct.
if you're like me, where you just kind of you've just kind of gone through your life, not really thinking about like intention of how you live, uh, I'd definitely give it a listen because it'll make you think differently about how you do things and what you could be doing and how you could be feeling to make yourself feel better.
Well,
Uh,
I really appreciate the kind words because I'm really proud of the work that I'm doing on it, and I'm excited about what's to come. And yeah, what do you love?
I love Deep Blue Sea. I love films like Deep Blue Sea, and we're going to talk about another one next week. The schedule is a little up in the air, but I think next week is going to be another Rennie Harlan film. I think it's going to be Cleaner, the Samuel L. Jackson crime scene cleaning film. And you can follow this podcast on pretty much all social media at Deep Blue Sea Pod. If you have any questions or comments, email us deepblueseapod@gmail.com, and you can find me over on lifeversusfilm.com sometimes as well. But as for Waterworld, thank you once again to my guest Justin Gott.
Thank you, Jay.
I've been Jake Lure, and I'll Deep Blue see you next week.